Thank you so much for the opportunity to present Pivot to Pasture today. I want to start by asking, when was the last time you had to make a pivot, a 180, something that maybe wasn't planned well and was a bit or maybe very stressful in the process? I think we have all had to make big changes over the last few years. And for anyone wishing to ensure that change in the future is as smooth as possible, this session is for you. Toward the end, I will also talk about at least two important concepts that could help anyone in their relationships with others. So even if you aren't looking to move to the country or bring more country to your urban lifestyle, you'll find value here. I'm Kirsten Simons. I'm a shepherd artist and also a certified professional in talent development, or CPTD. I worked in business consulting for over 6 years, and I'm a graduate of a business planning course through an organization called Enterprise for Equity. I worked in marketing and advertising for well over 12 years and have a bachelor's in communications. My husband, Bob Simons, is a retired U.S. Air Force photojournalist. He worked for the Department of Defense, which means that he worked for all branches of the service, was combat camera, and also an air crew member. He was our market gardener and all-round farm operations. Our operation has certainly changed and evolved over the years. For example, we were certified biodynamic in 2018 under the name Simons Says Farm. That was through the efforts of our son, Christopher Simons, who has been a sous chef with Campania and Canlis restaurants in Seattle, as well as Maidstone Club in East Hamptons, and an executive chef at Pelican Hill Resort in Irvine, California. We know and love great food, and we produce it here at River Birch Farms. We'll talk more about that later. Our agenda for today is to walk through a process for anyone wishing to make a pivot. To do that, we want to start with why. Focus on what the picture of success is, as well as the opportunity and the 1X focus, the commitment we need to make, how to engage people in our commitment, how to maintain that commitment, and then some next steps. We are the first to admit that we probably did everything we've done without planning well. One example is when my cousin offered us her beautiful pedigreed Arabian mare. I love horses, but was that the right thing for us and our operation? Our animals have been like the Trouble with Tribbles show on Star Trek. So cute, but man, do they reproduce fast. Did we plan for that? Not so well over the years. Did we need 4 aged and wild llamas because we had sheep and we wanted to help an 80-something-year-old lady who was having to move to Northern California? Absolutely not. Did we need to save 2 large black hogs a month before we were moving? Probably not. But wait, there's more. Is a giraffe in my future? Not likely, but my husband sure questions if that's going to happen at some point. So today, I hope to equip you with a solid start of a plan to pivot to pasture, or be a tad more intentional about what you do, whether that involves a pasture or not. Starting with why is the first business concept that we can apply in our everyday lives, related to any change we want to make. So I ask you, what is your why? What is it that drives you? That you wake up each day inspired to do? That you feel safe and valued? That you return home at the end of each day fulfilled, feeling as though you've contributed towards something greater than yourself? The ideas that Simon Sinek talks about in his book, Start With Why, and the ideas he describes related to his golden circle are certainly not new. Simon did not invent purpose. What he has been able to do is capture this idea that's been around for millennia in a way that is simple, easy to understand, and actionable. If you haven't read Simon's book, Start with Why, I encourage you to get it. It's been super helpful for a lot of business owners we've consulted with. Simon Sinek's Golden Circle focuses on why in the center, but also how and what people do. So when we think about what we do here at River Birch Farms, we grow beautiful, delicious, and healthy food. We select high quality animals with excellent breed character. We market hand spinning fiber and quality wool products. The how we do it, or the differentiator, is the biodynamic practices that we apply to produce what we do. Now, the why we do it is because we are both lifelong learners. We value high quality food and natural farm products. We are driven to be secure and be self-sufficient. And we really want to help others to do the same thing. In considering our why, we can think about what our picture of success is, what our mission is, what our purpose is, what our why is, what core values help define that. And if you're not sure about all this, you can reflect on 5 questions. The first one is, looking back on your life, describe a mountaintop experience where you felt the most joyful, exuberant, you were on top of the world. What were you doing? Who were you with? How did you get to that point? The second question, imagine yourself at your 90th birthday. What do you want to be remembered for? What will you look back on and celebrate? The third question, if you were to unexpectedly inherit $50 million, how would you spend that money? What would you do with your time if you no longer needed to work to earn money? Fourth question, who are the 2 people in your life that you most admire? What qualities do you see in them that you aspire to? Fifth question, think about a challenge you've experienced in the past. How were you able to get through it? What strengths did you exhibit that may have helped you overcome that hard struggle? There are some characteristics related to your answers in those 5 questions that will help you drill down to what your picture of success is, what your mission is, what drives you or your purpose, what your why is, and what your core values are. I want you to dream a little. Without considering how you will get to your nirvana just yet, just consider, what are the experiences I want to have every day? What does that sound like, look like, feel like, taste like? I mean, when you're laying in bed in the morning, and maybe you're not in bed, but when you wake up in the morning, before you even open your eyes, what are you hearing? What are you feeling? As you open your eyes, what do you see? As you go through your day and the experiences that you're having, what are you experiencing with those senses and the things that really drive you, that you really want to experience every single day? The vision and the values are intertwined. Does your vision align with your core values? If not, it's an opportunity to refine your vision. So let's dive a little bit deeper. As we look at developing our Pivot to Pasture plan, and we think about our vision, we have to think about a plan for people. Who is going to support your vision? People are the most important part of the whole Pivot to Pasture plan. Whether it's family, friends, your community, most people really just need people. So we're going to dive into some key concepts a little bit later to ensure that we have a good plan for people. When you think about your pivot to pasture plan and the plan for productivity, what do you want to produce? What will you actually use? And what does the market support? In other words, what kind of meals does your family eat? Can you be self-sufficient? Can you grow all or some of those ingredients yourself? Think about the plants. What grows well where you live or where you want to live? What will you eat? What does it require to grow that? Think what zone you're in. That's going to help you determine the types of gardening or crops you might want to grow. What will you actually eat? We've grown a lot of crops that we never ended up eating. For example, my husband's a southern boy. He loves okra. We had okra growing and it went crazy here in the Pacific Northwest. I'm chief cook and I don't like okra, so we didn't actually make a lot of okra. Maybe I just haven't had a good one, but you know, plant crops that you're actually going to eat. Consider having an edible landscape. What kind of inputs will you need to grow those crops? What's a good barter crop that would do well in your area? Where can you collaborate with your neighbors or friends or family about tools? Maybe each of you can plant a different crop and share if you find others who are like-minded. What other production would fit your vision? Do you look forward to having fresh farm eggs with your breakfast? Are you interested in producing fresh, healthy, raw milk? Do you want to make cheese? How about soaps and lotions? Are you a crafty person and do you want to have wool or fiber or other products that you want to create? Would poultry like chickens, ducks, or turkeys, or animals like goats, sheep, cows, etc., contribute to a biodynamic cycle on your farm by helping to improve your soils and your plant growth? When you think about pivoting, what kind of property are you looking at? What do you currently own or what will support your vision? What is it that your existing property would support? Consider hills, trees, water, wind, sun, your existing infrastructure. You could do a lot with a small space, but if you are dreaming big, you may need to go bigger on property. If you can't buy more property, consider renting or leasing what will support your vision. If you don't have a property, but have a compelling vision and a plan, try asking around if others need farm or gardening support. As we drive around our local community, I can see that there are properties that are underutilized. Maybe there are seniors out there who used to garden or used to farm, but they're retired or they're disabled. They aren't actively farming or gardening anymore. There may be someone out there that would appreciate amazing fresh vegetables or products in return for the opportunity to barter or lease for use of the land or infrastructure. Now that we've considered our plan for people, for productivity, for property, where are we going to focus? Because let's be honest, we can take on a lot of projects, but we can't do it all immediately. Or if we do it all immediately, we're probably not doing it well. Every venture we take on has an investment in the tools, in the infrastructure to make it happen. There's a learning curve with each new thing you take on. We know this. Each new thing we take on will dilute the attention that we can give to something that is already potentially really important to us. So let's prioritize how we invest our time. We want to focus where we're going to have the highest magnitude of impact. We want to first prioritize our own spiritual, physical, and mental health. Next, we want to prioritize to invest in those we care about, the things that we care about. Then we want to consider our wider priorities. If we're still searching for that one thing that we want to focus on, try the intersection of experience and skill. What can we be the best at in the world? Passion. What can we be energized about every single day? And the third thing is what the market will support. What key economic indicator tells us where the gap is in our market? Where possible, we want to use good data to support our decision making. All three have to be present for us to have success in our endeavor. You can have all the skill and passion in the world, but if there is no market, you will really need to decide if you can build a market or find something else to do. You can have all the passion and a market for what you produce, but if you aren't skilled, you'll need to focus on building knowledge and skill. You can have the skill and a market, but have no passion. You're burned out and will either need to find something different to do or find a way to rekindle your passion. Maybe it's time to take a break, reset, address the things that are causing you to not love what you do, and then come back with a renewed perspective and passion. If you don't have the skill, passion, or market for something that contributes to your vision, consider that someone else is already producing something that you could potentially barter with or buy what they're producing and support their vision. Now that we've talked about the mission and vision, our why, making sure that that is clear and compelling and that our values align with the vision and what our focus is, next we can talk about commitment. And here's where we want to align, engage, refine, and maintain. How aligned is our team? Think roles and responsibilities. Do we have the right people in the right seats? Think cash, and that is knowledge, attitude, skills, and habit. Knowledge and skill can be relayed by taking courses or finding a mentor. This is where training and development comes in. Attitude and habits are something we can be aware of for ourselves, and we can influence those around us. Remember, we only have control over our own thoughts, words, and deeds. What we think is what we say is what we do, and what we do becomes our legacy. So how does what we are doing and our vision align with anyone else involved in our vision? Have you considered what the personal, professional, and financial goals are of anyone involved in your vision? How does what you are considering align with what they truly want? And if it doesn't align, that's an opportunity to revisit your vision and consider adjusting it. Our next step in engaging people in a commitment is proactively engaging them by asking for their heart before you ask for a hand. James Robbins talks about 9 engagement drivers in his 9 Minutes on a Monday book. These engagement drivers include care, the need to be more than a number, grow, the need to grow and develop. And when I'm talking about these engagement drivers, or James is, he's talking about what people need in order to be engaged in your vision. So again, care, grow, recognize the need to be valued, to have recognition and appreciation. Achieve, the need for challenge and achievement. Purpose, the need for significance. Autonomy, the need for responsibility and control. Connect, the need to connect relationally. Fun, the need to play and create. And model, the need for security and inspiration and a model to follow. If we can proactively understand and meet these needs for us or for anyone involved in our vision, we can better engage people in our vision and motivate and inspire them to help us achieve that vision. At any point in our process of creating our pivot to pasture plan, we can refine the vision. We always want to ask ourselves, is the vision clear and compelling? If not, where can we make it more clear? Do people know and live the values? Do they even know what the values are? Are roles and responsibilities clear at every level? And has everyone committed to what they are willing to do? Because let's be honest, you can have a vision, but if it requires you doing something that you're not willing to do, then you either need to adjust the vision or you need to up the commitment. So if every team member is not committed to what is required to achieve that vision or the values, you adjust and refine. Now, I want to talk about two important concepts to maintain that commitment and engagement. There are two ways that we can proactively do that. The first is to manage conflict. Think about how conflict causes just like huge stress. And anytime there's drama or something happen that's a conflict, it takes us off our focus, and that causes us to disengage. So conflict happens when expectations are unclear or when there is a perceived loss of this acronym called SCARF, and that is status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness. So status means social standing. Everyone wants to feel important in some way. Certainty relates to our ability to predict the future. If we can't predict the future, we feel uncomfortable. The less certainty we have, the more anxious we tend to feel, and the more emotional energy we tend to spend on doing things like predicting the future and trying to assure the future. Autonomy relates to our sense of control over ourselves, what we do, and the events around us. The more control we have, the more positive we feel, and vice versa. When we have autonomy, we feel safe and in control. When we feel out of control, that's where things can go sideways. We can have conflict. Relatedness relates to our sense of safety with others, how able we feel to relate to them. If we're surrounded by friends who wish us well and whose objectives are aligned with our own, then we'll tend to feel safe and positive. If we're not, then we don't. Fairness relates to our sense of justice and equity in the interactions that take place around us. If we work in an environment in which effort and attainment are rewarded, bad behavior is addressed, and leaders value playing by the rules, then we're likely to feel that things are pretty fair. I highly recommend this book that I was just blessed to come across, Conflict Without Casualties by Nate Regier. Just so you know how important this topic is, when we were business consulting, we had big events where we brought in a number of small businesses. We brought in huge speakers like John Maxwell and Jim Collins and a number of leading thought experts in business. And we always had big main stage speakers, but also breakout sessions that were related to the areas where we were consulting with them in operations and finance, marketing, professional development, and human resources. The first year that we did this topic on conflict without casualties, where we communicated some of the concepts that I'm sharing with you today, those sessions normally would only have maybe 20 to 30 people in them, maybe 40. We had 142 people in that room. It was standing room only. Obviously, this topic strikes a chord, and so it's really important that we move away from drama into holding people accountable, but in a compassionate way. And that's what Nate talks about in his book, Conflict Without Casualties. Highly recommend. The second concept that I want to talk about related to maintaining commitment is managing change. Any pivot can bring great change, and most people don't initially embrace that change. When a change initiative is launched, people often focus on what they will have to give up rather than on what they will gain in that change. Although there's always a few early adopters and advocates for the change, most people are going to be pretty neutral. This is primarily because people don't really understand the business case for the change. Their status quo is pretty comfortable, and they really kind of just hope that the change will simply go away. Think about a move from the city to the country, or changing what your focus is. It could mean that your status would be affected. Things won't be like you were used to. You may have to give up important relationships, or it would just mean a change in that relationship. Change can definitely bring stress and conflict, all things that can take us off our focus and slow progress toward our vision. Remember that when you decide to make a change, you've already had the time to process, kind of go through the pros and cons of that decision. You've made a decision, you're already beginning that move forward. People will be at different stages of concerns throughout a change process, and they're going to need different leadership behaviors at any given point in time. For a change effort to succeed, any of the partners or team members involved need to feel like they can express their concerns and be heard. They need to feel like the people leading the change will consider their needs in planning the change. They need to feel like they know what to expect and know that they will continue to be important, that they'll know what the future holds, that they know what they'll have control over, know what the relationships they have, that they'll still be important, and that the impact of extra work to affect the change is as fair as it can be. To manage change effectively, people need to be involved from the very beginning, from assessing the status quo to exploring options to building the business case to creating the vision of the future. Change should be done with people, not to people. Don't fall into the trap of having to make such an urgent change that the details aren't thought about or worked through first. Most changes fail because of a lack of information and lack of upfront planning. Take the time to plan, to pilot, to experiment with or test drive the change. If you're considering a different type of livestock or a different type of community, go out there and experience it. Rent a place, find a mentor, find a farm that you can go and observe what it is to be down and dirty and working with working with cows, milking cows, having doing hooves on goats, having a garden. Most people will appreciate the help and be happy to share some of what they've learned through their process. Leaders gain their team members' respect by raising their leadership ability, respecting others, adding value to others, and by being loyal, courageous, and successful. Remember that everyone walks through that change at their own pace, so don't leave anyone behind in that change process. Okay, we talked about mission and vision. We talked about our commitment and involving people. And now we want to talk about the execution plan. And this is where we look at the how. We look at the people, the infrastructure, the systems, the processes. Then we define the tactics we will take that move us to accomplish our vision. This is where we can document our business plan. List all the things that you could do to contribute to your vision. We look at things like operations, infrastructure, processes, that type of thing. We look at finance for budgeting. What can you afford to do? Everything takes time and money. We want to consider that with our plan. Marketing. Are we going to exchange goods and services? How are we going to, if we have a product, how are we going to sell it or barter or trade with that? The human resources, we talked a lot about people and our plan to engage people. Talent development is really the plan for cash, that knowledge, attitude, skills, and habits. We want to look at all of that. And then we want to consider what is the one thing that's going to move us toward that vision? What are we going to commit to, that one thing that we think will make the most impact? We're going to do that thing, and then we're going to move on to the next. I want to leave you with a few last thoughts. When we think about a pivot to pasture, it means that we're going to have a different pace of life. And we can actually align with what's happening seasonally. Think about in the spring, we're cleaning for spring cleaning. We're clearing out the old. We're making way for the new. We're celebrating the signs of rebirth, of creation, that new life that's all around us. I've planted a few seeds, hopefully, today. I want you to nurture the seeds that have been planted and consider what you can do to grow that. Ground and root yourself with a good, solid plan. Grow and stretch yourself. Challenge yourself. Allow time for rest and rejuvenation. That's a natural part of every growing cycle. Bloom where you are planted. Even if where you are doesn't make you feel like you're going to achieve your vision perfectly, there are things that you can do where you are that will help you move a little bit closer. You will soon harvest what you focus on now. So I want to ask you, what is one thing you can do this year, this month, this week, maybe even today, that will move you toward that vision of yours, toward your nirvana? Consider that regularly and commit to doing one thing each day that will move you forward. That is your 1X, your single organizing focus. Do that thing and then move on to the next thing. We covered a ton of ground in the last bit in this presentation. I would love to hear what you took away from this presentation, and I'd love to hear more of your questions and also what you'd like to hear more about in upcoming Pivot to Pasture podcasts or classes. We're going to host a series of presentations that dive a little bit deeper into each of the concepts that we touched on today. So connect with us at riverbirchfarms.com. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. Inquire about consulting services. And we have farm products for sale, so shop our farm products. That's a way that you can support what we're doing. With that, I want to say thank you. I so appreciate your time today. Hopefully you will connect with us. We're on most social media. And I hope that you'll show up at some of the future presentations. With that, I want to encourage you to go out there and make it a great day.